Everyone has something to contribute to that transformation, whether it's at Rolls-Royce or anywhere else in the organization. And your people are your competitive advantage, because what else differentiates you from the market?
Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Mary Glowacka, who's a global head of learning and leadership development at Rolls-Royce. During the episode, Mary shares how Rolls-Royce is investing in people during its transformational journey, how to stay ahead in a rapidly changing business world, and lastly, she shares how Rolls-Royce's people-first approach increases innovation. As always, before we jump into the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Mary, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, Chris, hi, thanks. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Why are we giggling already? We haven't even started yet, and we're just already giggling.
This is what it's all about. Let's go.
How you been anyway?
Yeah, I'm really well, actually. Really well. Very excited for every day, to be honest.
Oh, that's good.
So
right.
It's raining today in London, but I have sunshine in my heart.
Oh, how many times when did you make that line up?
Just now, Chris. Just looking at you.
On the top of that was quite a good line, yeah. So even though you how long have you been in London for?
Oh God, great question. 16 years.
What?
With a couple of breaks. I was in Spain for a couple of years up until last year.
Yeah.
But otherwise, 16 years.
What brought you here?
Great question. Personal things brought me here.
Love.
Maybe.
Let's not get into it. It's not that kind of show, Chris.
Long gone, Chris.
Yeah.
Yes, and just really life threw me here, to be honest. There wasn't ever any grand plan.
What about London that can make you stay though? Like what?
I was actually first in Bristol for 3 years when I emigrated to the UK. I love Bristol. I really think it's
a relaxed pace of life down there.
There's a little bit of everything there. Great music scene.
Yes, my friends DJ down there a lot.
Oh yeah.
And now that a couple of them live there.
Mm-hmm.
And then really random fact, every single Saturday for like 3 years, I used to go to Bristol every Saturday to perform, because we used to get paid to dance in the clubs, like we all break dancers.
No way.
In the Carling Academy, it's like
really?
rink,
yes.
Bar. So we used to get paid to go and just break dance, perform on stage, and my friend would DJ. We did that for 3 years, every single weekend. It was such a fun time. It's like I get paid to dance. This is amazing. As well. So yeah, Bristol's really cool. Nice place to live.
Such a cool place. So I was there for 3 years before my career really took me to London, and I've been in London ever since. Yeah, apart from the last couple of years while I was in Spain.
So tell everyone where you are now, what you're up to.
So I'm at Rolls-Royce, Civil Aerospace, Defense Power Systems, Global Head of Learning and Leadership Development. I joined the company last year.
Nice.
As part of the strategic transformation team. So we've had our new CEO on board since January 2023. And we have embarked as an organization on a 6-year transformation plan.
How have you even planned for 6 years, given it's quite hard to have a 6-year plan when things are so disruptive and things are moving so quickly?
Yes, it's a tough one, but look, the plan is the plan is divided into smaller pieces, let's put it that way. So there is a continuation of a continuous review and so on, but the aim is that we'll hit our ambitions as part of the transformation plan in about 6 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that what, because knowing you, is that what excited you about it? The fact that you're going into a company with a huge transformation, you like to put yourself in hard roles. It's a compliment to you, by the way.
You know what I will say, because I told you this before, Chris. Yes, business as usual is not really for me. I thrive on change, and that's not really just in my professional life. I've just operated like that since I can remember. I thrive on change. I think it really goes down to some of my beliefs. I I love life. I think variety is the spice of life.
I love that.
So
Variety is the spice of life.
I also love cooking, so you might get some references there.
Okay. Variety is, what was it again?
Variety is the spice of life.
I love that.
And I really live by that rule.
The t-shirt with that on.
Yeah. Next time, Chris, we're going to rock up in the same t-shirts with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think... I think where it's coming from is that I truly believe that change is inevitable. I don't expect anything to stay the same ever.
You chose the right job then.
Yeah, so I chose, well, maybe the right job picked me, right?
Oh, actually, that's true. Yeah.
And I always think of my dad when I talk of change, because my dad instilled in me a philosophy of what I just said, that change is inevitable. And he would always say to me that there are only 3 things in life that are guaranteed. And that's death, taxes, and change. And I always say to Dad these days that, well, these days, if you're a billionaire, the tax piece may not be that
I thought you were going to say
applicable.
I thought you was about to say the billionaires live longer, but you switched it up on me. All right, yeah, they're definitely good at avoiding taxes. Yeah,
So I do thrive on change, and I like helping organizations that take change seriously. I like to help them to get there. What I mean, take change seriously, what I mean by that specifically is companies that really understand that only the people who are in that company can make that change happen. And it cannot be a very exclusive, select group of people somewhere at the top of the house in the ivory tower. Everybody needs to contribute to transforming a business. Everyone has something to contribute to that transformation, whether it's at Rolls-Royce or anywhere else in the organization. And your people are your competitive advantage, because what else differentiates you from the market? I mean, our CEO, excuse me, will say that and have said that, you know, any product, any service can be technically replicated quite easily.
Yeah.
Some may take longer, whatever. But what you can't really replicate in any company is the set of people that is in that company. That's a unique set of people. And now what are you going to do as a company to make the most of that talent that you have? And how do we use strategy as an engagement tool in the company, really? And that's how we see our strategy as well, this transformation strategy. It's a tool to engage the company, to create really good energy, so we sail all in the same direction as one organization. We've got clear goals, and we pull on the right people in the right moments, and we drive to those goals together.
Well, I fully agree with everything you're saying there. And is that now the lens that you look through when you and the team sit down and think about creating the strategy? Is it, how do you think about it when you're looking at building this 6-year transformation? What are the different lenses you're looking through when you think about that?
How I see it is I will usually start from the what and the how.
Okay.
And the what we need to do, you know, for me, it's important to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. But how you're going to get there, it may literally change on a daily basis, particularly in this day and age where, you know, I mean, the pace of change is just incredible. We just can't keep up as human beings.
That's why it's like you've got the 6-year plan, but to your point, you're saying doesn't mean it's going to be a straight line.
No, it's never going to be a straight line. It's like a river that just meanders through that plan all the time. And you've got to find a way to energize, engage, and align people towards that big, hairy, audacious goal. So we can meander together rather than, well, if one of the goalposts changes, then all the people will just suddenly go in different directions. No, come back here. We still have the same goal at the top.
Yeah.
But maybe we need to turn right today rather than what we thought we may rather than when we thought maybe we needed to turn left.
Yeah. How's that made you reimagine your HR strategy then and the way you deploy it?
I mean, for me, it always starts from the business strategy. So what do we need to deliver as a business?
Mm-hmm.
And we help the business get there on the how we're going to get there through our people as well.
There's no such thing as, it's almost like both your strategies are one and the same. You don't have a HR strategy.
No.
You don't have a business strategy. You just have a business strategy.
Exactly.
And HR is part of that.
Absolutely.
It goes back to what you said to me earlier. Otherwise, you end up just becoming an order taker
Mm-hmm.
at that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. You need to create that space at the table for yourself, and how you do it is by showing up as a strategic business partner, as an advisor, as a sounding board to your business partners. And I also often, what I find interesting in the language that we use in HR and the business. We are the business.
I say that all the time. It drives me crazy.
Why HR and the business?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we an exception?
You know what? We don't say that about any other function.
No, we don't say sales and the business,
No.
right?
No, it's true. Yeah.
And I don't know where this is coming from. Is this coming from
right?
HR wanted to differentiate itself?
What do you think about the name of HR business partners as well? They're just business partners. Why do we define it as HR business partners? What do you think about that one?
Again, I think
marketing don't call themselves marketing business partners.
Yes.
Sorry, or sales business partners. Like it's the business.
Yes.
But for some reason, it's almost like it's trying to justify its own existence, if that makes sense.
And I wonder if that's where it's coming from, that legacy need to differentiate yourself, because maybe in the past you felt like no one listened to you. So you needed to carve out that space.
Yeah.
And part of that process was, well, let's create our own language and let's differentiate
That would be a
ourselves.
positive thing.
And then that would be a positive thing.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you have to be integrate. I mean, I just don't even know how else it can work. You are the business. In simple terms, you're just another department in the business.
I know. Yeah.
So
I think we've made a lot of progress though. Would you agree?
100%. Again, it depends where you go in different organizations. The maturity of the relationship between HR teams and the rest of the business will differ.
How do you when you've been part of so many big companies, when you go through your interview process, really random question, how do you know whether those are the right companies that are truly see HR as part of the business? Is there any particular things you do during the interview process that ask, how do you really know? Because sometimes you don't know until you get on the inside, and then you're like, oh no, this is not what I signed up for. Which I speak to many leaders that are promised a dream. They get in and they're like, oh, how have you navigated that to ensure that is this truly a company that's invested in HR and sees HR as the business and the business HR?
Well, I would suggest you need to know all of that before you go to an interview, actually.
Really? Oh, so okay, before you even the interview.
Yeah.
How do you find that out?
Constantly scanning the horizon, constantly learning about what's going on in the world, in these different companies, building your network. Learning a lot of that from your network. And then
you get honest feedback from people that are already there. People forget that there is such thing as a network that you could go into.
Because look, I think also I work quite a lot with young people at the beginning of their careers, and this is one of the ongoing topic of our conversations in different situations. And I always ask them one thing: who promised you that it will be easy in companies? Where is that expectation coming from, that something will be easy? That everyone, every single day that is around you, will open every door for you, will want to help you, will want you to succeed. Who promised you that? No one promised me that. I don't operate on the assumption that someone is going to open every door for me, or I try to be as self-sufficient as possible. So the point I'm really trying to make here is no company is perfect. Why would it be? Every company is a collection of flawed people. We are flawed human beings. We're beautiful creatures. And part of humanity is that we have flaws, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. So if we apply that logic, then you should expect challenges in your organization. And frankly, if it was all perfect, I mean, we wouldn't have jobs, right? I mean, I know it's a very...
To your point, though, earlier in the conversation, you probably wouldn't be as excited and motivated. For example, like you, I'm always looking at being challenged. And if I walked into a job where everything was perfect and I wasn't being challenged, I'd be bored.
Well,
I want to be in difficult, hard roles that force me to grow as a person, develop, and that's not easy. That's hard. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm like, why did I do this again? And I'm like, we all had that feeling, but I wouldn't change that.
Yeah.
For an easy, everything's amazing.
But you make a really important point there. You asked just now in the moment, why do I do it? So that I get up every morning and this is what gets me going. It really boils down to your own intrinsic motivation. What do you want from life? What do you want from work? A lot of the conversation right now.
That, though. A lot of people I speak to, they can't answer that question.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I've asked, like, because I suppose an easy example, like this weekend, I spoke to one of my friends and he was like, "Oh, you're not coming out, you're working, like, what?" Like, and I'm like, "No, I enjoy it." So he said it as a negative. I was like, "No, I'm like working as in like I'm happy to. I'm like I'm excited to work." And he was like, "What do you mean? It's the weekend." I'm like, "Well, I'm like, okay, maybe that's one thing that I enjoy what I do, and I forget that it feels like that a lot of people that I speak to don't enjoy what they do." It's just, the vast majority, maybe that's just my network, but the vast majority of people I speak to, they don't fully enjoy what they do. So maybe that's part of it.
I mean, it's a tough one because, look, I am a working class person, right? So first of all, my default is I have to work. But I found something in my life that gives me so much joy and drive. And why would I not be happy that I do things that enable me to contribute something, learn, grow, be happy, be excited, solve some really complex issues. But again, that's me. That's what I need. Some other people might not need it, but then, what's on my mind at the moment, for example, is purpose and culture, right? When I think of our transformation as well. And it's one of those funny things for me that I think people look for that purpose these days in their organizations. Tell me, what is the purpose? What is our vision? What is our mission? Okay, but what's the purpose, right? And how I can find a way as an employee in this company to align myself to that purpose. But I challenge that a little bit because you don't necessarily need to have the same purpose as your enterprise-wide purpose. So, for example, I don't get up every morning being very excited about jet engines. But what excites me is that I have a role in this transformation, for instance, to help unearth incredible talent that builds those engines. And I want to find ways on a systemic level, so company-wide, for people to enjoy that process.
Yeah.
Because I also think joy should be an intrinsic part of work. So but you cannot expect that the company will come to you every day and tell you how to find that joy. What are you doing to find your own purpose in that whole broader ecosystem that you are a part
take more
of?
ownership then of it.
Yes.
Interesting.
And again, that's a big part of my conversations with Gen Zs, because sometimes, you know, they ask me different questions and they're like, oh, you know, employee engagement and yeah, we want this, we want that. I'm like, okay, what are you doing every day to keep yourself going? Where is the expectation coming from that someone should, does anyone come to you, Chris, every day and say, Chris, you should?
There are, when I started early in my career, the things that I'm hearing people were interviewing or Gen Z asking for, it's not even just them, it's anyone actually that I'm interviewing. They're asking for a lot of these things that I just never heard before. They expect it, is what I'm trying to get to. To your point, it's not earned, or it's not like you're taking it upon yourself to do that. It's like it's expected that the company does every single one of those things for you. But there is a part of ownership and also earning that as well, which I love what you're saying. And the purpose piece is really interesting because, like, you know, my last company, we did events, right? Like across different industries. I didn't wake up every day being like, I can't wait to do another expo. Right, like my purpose is aligned with expos, but what I realized is one of the things I loved in that company, which connected me to my purpose, was, and I have a purpose statement. So my purpose statement is to be the unbreakable artist that dances you to life. It says all words that relate to me. So unbreakable artist is for my passion of art, and the reason I use unbreakable artist is I'm trying to challenge the status quo. So unbreakable in my focus on constantly innovating and running against the wind that everyone's telling me don't go direct. And so I use artist because it's a word that dances you to life, which is the point I was going to get to. Obviously, I grew up dancing. I met my wife through dancing. And dances to life is my analogy of the thing I get the most joy out is helping people grow and develop in their careers. It's nothing that means more to me than seeing someone come in and grow and develop and shine and so that's sort of the unbreakable artist that dances you to life is the employee growth. And I actually drew a huge picture that represents that. I painted a whole canvas which represents this. But to your point, that's what I was excited about, developing my team, not doing exhibitions and events to solve business problems as well. But I do think employees do need help coming to that conclusion because it's not easy. So I didn't come to that conclusion on my own. I went to a 2-day workshop where we kind of went deep into discovery, and that came out of that because I didn't understand it. Not everyone really can connect the two. So I do think there's help as organizations that we can do. Unilever have an amazing program that I was lucky to be part of or at least witness, where they had 15,000 leaders go through their purpose to impact training, where they sort of talk about how you connect that. But again, it's to their individual, to your point, not to Unilever's specific product, but how they're making an impact as well. But you're the first person I've ever heard bring up, like, who's to say it's going to be easy? I think it's just so real. No one's saying it, but it's so true. It was hard when I first joined my first job. Now people are expecting everything to be roses and easy. No growth happens in that place. No growth. Maybe it's part of our upbringing, maybe because it was really hard. Maybe it's also that part of it, because I grew up in a really, really difficult upbringing. So when I came into the business, I'm like, this is nothing. Yes, it's hard, but I'm like, this is where I've had the most growth as well. So it's hard though, as in a company, to do that, because they're probably worried about not attracting. Like, how do you position that in your employee value proposition to people? Like, hey, this is going to be really tough, but it's going to be so rewarding to you as well. It's tough.
It's tough. It's complex because we're dealing with people, and there will be a combination of different factors that contribute to how people think collectively and individually about things like, how do I build personal resilience, or what are my expectations from life or from my employer? There will be factors like your upbringing. There will be factors like your cultural background. You know, I'm Eastern European, for instance. We are taught from a young age that it doesn't matter how you feel. You get up every morning and you do it. Whatever you need to do, You just go and do it.
So if I only did things every time that I feel like it, I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, I think also that's one of the differences between people that I see that are very, very successful is they're the people that they don't do things because they feel like it, they just do it. So, you know, gym is a good example. I did not want to go to the gym yesterday. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's
got to be done.
I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stay up last night replying to the 40 emails in my inbox, but it's got to be done. And those are the separations that you see of people that they do it, they're consistent with it. They don't make decisions based on how they're feeling. If you do that, you're always going to be inconsistent all over the place. Whereas you see highly successful people, no matter how they're feeling, if they made a commitment to themselves, they don't let themselves down. It's a commitment to yourself.
That's a great way.
Because if you start letting yourself down and if you can't hold a commitment to yourself, psychologically, it's very hard to overcome and be resilient when you're not even delivering for you.
That's a great way to put it, actually. And this is arguably, I'd welcome a discussion with anyone about it, but arguably this is, for me, the number one skill in an organization these days. To know how to get stuff done, regardless of how you feel today, regardless of whether, you know, you feel lonely and you feel like no one is trying to help you. Just how to navigate an organization to get stuff done and not let go and just keep going.
How do you, I don't know what category we would put that in terms of like a power skill, like a capability. Like I don't know what you define that as underneath.
I just define it as get stuff done.
I know we don't. Resilience is probably a bit of resilience.
Resilience is a for me. Resilience is a component of getting stuff done. But I guess
it's sort of
it's a really good question. I guess you could look at it from a mindset perspective, because it could be. I think it's really boils down to that mindset. It's like what you just said.
Shane's amazing at that as my co-founder. He's like the most consistent. You know, he does things to a high standard consistently, which is why he's successful. If he says to me, for the next 3 months, I'm doing 5K every day running, he does it, no matter. Yeah. Today it was raining outside, he don't care. I'm riding my bike to work because I told myself I'll do it. And he does the same thing in business. If we say we're going to achieve X, it doesn't matter what happens, political climate, pandemic, anything, we just find a way to just get it done, to your point as well. And there's no I can't. It's just we'll figure it out. Like even if we don't know at the time to do it, it's just and that's the thing again. Like we talk about this a lot on the podcast, is the difference between the knowing doing gap. Right? Everyone knows the how. The internet exists. You can find out how to do anything at the moment, right? Ask ChatGPT, it'll tell you how. There's one thing of knowing it, then there's a whole other game of actually going and doing it and getting the work done, to your point, and executing on it. And again, I see this in highly successful CHROs. They have a very quick knowing to doing. Yes, it's very quick. And they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to iterate and realize we're not going to get it right the first time. Doesn't have to just master plan. And they're very fast at making that, absorbing knowledge, execution, and then building the minimum viable product and refining and providing feedback open, clear to their employees, and keep doing it. They're not afraid. Yes. They're not afraid to say we don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Either.
And you may not know today, but maybe tomorrow you'll figure it out. It's okay to not know in this moment in time absolutely everything. And that's also incredibly important in leaders, that they know how to navigate their teams, their organizations through a lot of ambiguity. You know, Rolls-Royce is an engineering organization, 117 years of legacy. Arguably, everyone recognizes the brand. And, that engineering mindset of that constant, iteration, and we need to learn because technology is constantly evolving. We've got to evolve. We're constantly evolving, failing forward. Exactly. To me, when I think of the most effective leaders, to me, the most effective leaders are those who know how to operate between strategy and execution. As you said, to your point, Chris, you can find everything and anything online these days.
Yeah.
And there's so much thought leadership out there, and it's some phenomenal stuff. But then the question is, okay, well, how do you translate all that thought leadership into how you're actually going to act on it in your organization, considering your organizational context as well? Because you can take a piece and you need to implement it very differently in one organization and a different organization. It's so, for instance, you know about some of my experiences, and I like to give that as an example, what I'm about to say, because it's such a, I think, fantastic contrast. Crisis management. I went through the pandemic at Bank of America, over 200,000 people globally, desktop-based culture. We enabled 180,000 people around the world in 3 weeks to work from home who have never worked from home before. Extremely successful organization, very complex organization, right? Another crisis I went through when the war in Ukraine broke out, I was at a startup. And how you navigate through crisis in a global, very established investment bank, and how you manage a crisis in a non-profitable startup are two very different things. So the what is not changing, really. I've got to manage a crisis and I've got to help my people go through this crisis. But how I'm going to do it will differ vastly. Well, first of all, any factor you look at in that situation, first of all, if you look at the resources that you can put behind a crisis in those two very different environments, right? Mm-hmm. And I would argue, actually, that in an environment where resources are scarce, particularly money, that's where incredible innovation bubbles up in the company.
Yeah, you got no choice. Yeah.
You just have to find way to make a lot of things happen, and it's not like you have an endless pit of money to just throw at the problem. You've got to think very differently about these problems. Like, for me, these are very exciting challenges.
Despite how, what would you say then, having led through, a global pandemic, a war, literally, what advice would you give to leaders who haven't been through that, but maybe they probably will in the future? What advice would you have to them, giving back of how to manage that, both personally as well and professionally?
Thanks for asking this question, because actually we had some conversations about it with some people over the last few months in my company. You've got to trust your team, as in you've got to be there for your team, but you've got to trust your team and pull on your team. We have to be all in this together, and you have to trust that maybe we've never done something like that before as a team, but we will pull together and we'll just figure it out. So you've got to bring everybody on your team to that situation, rather than try to be guarded and feel like, no, I've got to protect everybody now and I have to work all of this out. Because actually, no, you cannot work this all out by yourself, because who's given you the blueprint? Where is the blueprint in 21st century how to manage a company and its people when a war breaks out? No one was expecting, right, that we're going to have a war in Europe in this day and age, but it unfortunately happened. We don't have a blueprint for that. So yes, you leverage some of your past experiences, but they will only take you so far. The rest you have to work out. And honestly, in some cases, the more brains you can put behind the problem, the better, because actually you will be most effective when you bring in different people to that situation. So, I was bringing people with, for example, different language capabilities, right? Because we were monitoring 24/7 practically situation at every single border with Ukraine. And I pulled people who can speak multiple languages, and because they were helping us understand what's happening in all the neighboring countries through their families, because there was just so much going on, and we couldn't at some point distinguish what was true and what was not. So we pulled in on some local people who were able to help us gauge the situation on the ground, right?
Yeah, you need that diversity from a cultural point of view, but also to know the local context, to your point, as well.
And the second thing
how did you do that in a, sorry, carry on with that and I'll ask you after.
No, the other thing I was just going to add, Chris, is the second most important thing for a leader to be effective in those kind of scenarios is you've got to maintain optimism, not only for yourself, because you've got to find a way to keep going every day, but also for people around you. They look up to you. And it is your role as a leader to give people hope in moments of crisis, not false expectations. So I don't encourage anyone to go and say, no, it's all going to be fine. How do you know it's going to be fine? Do you have a crystal ball?
Yeah.
But you do not make false promises to people who are going through deep trauma, but maintain optimism and give them hope. Yeah.
How did you do that even when you didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel or have a problem personally? How did you still continue to do that?
Don't get me wrong, I had some really bad moments, right? But at the end of the day, it's a non-negotiable to me, because what is the alternative?
Yeah.
The alternative would be I would have to crawl into bed and just remove myself from the world. So maybe that's a question to ask yourself in those moments, whether it's work crisis, personal crisis. What is the alternative if you don't get up every day and try to go through it?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the answer is, that's your personal answer. And then whatever that answer is, maybe it will help you navigate what you can do and how you can react or respond in those situations.
For me, it was like during the pandemic when we were struggling, it was what got me up and kept me going even when I didn't know, was the responsibility that I felt like I had to my team. I was saying to Shane, the whole entire pandemic, I never really thought about myself. And it was weird. We didn't take a breath, either of us. We were just thinking about the fact that our employees have kids, they've got mortgages.
Yes.
We have a responsibility to them.
Yes.
And at no point, and that actually ended badly for me, because I wasn't taking care of myself, I ended up having really bad anxiety, panic attacks, stuff like that, because I was just so focused on everyone else but myself.
Yes.
So it kind of backfired in that sense, because obviously my body was like, okay, enough is enough, you know. But that's what kept me going. Even when I didn't have an answer, didn't know what we were gonna do, I was like, as you said, you have no choice. What else am I gonna do?
Yes.
I said, am I just not gonna go get out of bed?
I wonder, I'm so fascinated by this, and I wonder what you're actually gonna say about it, Chris. But I have been. I've been asked many times, you know, in my life, why are you so happy all the time? Why are you so positive all the time?
It's amazing, actually.
I do have my bad days. Don't get me wrong, right?
You bring a smile and energy into every room you do.
But it's almost like people ask that with a suspicion, like what is wrong with you, right? And it's really fascinating for me, because I would put you in that same category, Chris. You're incredibly happy, driven, positive. But what I tend to then say is, it's not because I had it easy. It's despite everything.
Yeah. The ability to...
It's a choice. Like, happiness is a choice. And I think, I don't know, I almost think like being miserable is a bit of a privilege, to be honest with you, that you can actually afford to sit there every day on this really comfortable sofa and just fester in your own misery. Like,
yeah, I was saying to my friend last night, one of the things that I say to myself, everyone in my team's heard this 1,000 times, where I have this inner voice and it says this same sentence every day: is what I'm doing, saying, thinking or feeling right now getting me close to achieving my goals? If the answer is no, then stop it.
don't do it.
Complaining, moaning, being miserable, blaming the world, politics, the government, whatever it may be, like all those things. Like even my negative talk, like, is negative talk gonna result in positive outcomes? Obviously not, right? So I've had these things since I was young, where I say that, is what you're doing. I would stop myself mid negative thought and go, Chris, is what you're doing, saying, thinking, feeling right now getting you closer to achieving your dreams? Shut up, stop doing it. Whether it's a physical thing, a mental thing, a verbal thing, a thought. And I something I've had for years. I'd always do it now, and I've trained myself to catch myself. Like, even when I'm physically doing an activity. The other day I was doing a lot of manual activities and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, is this getting me closer? Or I said yes to something, which I won't say what it is. I said yes to someone, made a promise and commitment, and then realized, I've just said something which is taking me off my path. So my coach is like, Chris, you need to learn to say no more, because you're trying to please everyone. But is that getting you closer to achieving your goal? No. Then, so now it also creates a great operating foundation. Now when I think about making decisions, Shane, should we go this direction? Is it going to get us closer to our goal?
Yes.
No.
It's your personal compass.
Yeah, exactly. There you go, personal compass. And the answer is, and we have our business compass as well, the same thing. Is that decision going to get us closer to here? Is that partnership, whatever it may be, is that higher? And then we're like, so the reason that's important, that even during crisis, if you have that foundation, you can still make decisions.
Yes.
Even when things are going crazy, you can just be like, all right, let's not make a rational decision based on that. I look at this and go, is this going to help us? No. All right, cool.
Yes. Just in any, whether it's crisis or any type of really deep change, whether it's professionally or personally that you're going through, it's easy to lose track of that longer term vision or goal, to your point, because there's always something just in front of our nose that is trying to distract us. Always. Okay, yes, I'll say yes because I want to be nice and do him or her or them a favor, right? Or something like that. But again, for me, it's more an art than a science, because I think it's important to have perhaps that personal framework that we're talking about here, but some freedom in that framework is also needed. Why I believe that to be true, because again, we are just human. We're human at the end of the day, and it's okay to sometimes make a slightly different decision that perhaps what the framework would have told you to do. What was the reason for doing that? Or if you just reacted in the moment and said, okay, I'll do the podcast with you, instead of responding, giving yourself a moment and saying, I'd love to do it. Let's try maybe next quarter. Okay. It also helps you build that self-awareness, and you're more than in tune with those moments where you find yourself, my old habits are trying to pull me here, right? Or I want to please, right? I want to please, for instance, in the moment.
You got to have like your little, almost like we kind of see, me and Shane see it as our own little incubator hub. So you've got your core product where you're going, and then you have your little incubator hub over here. So you're just testing things out. You're still going down your direct. Every company has it. You see every company have their core business product, right? And then they have their innovation in the incubator hub. And they just try new things. Like, and then they introduce it, and they never know what's going to work, what's going to not. We even have that. So me and Shane will allocate money and investment into certain little things. We don't know where we're going to work out. The podcast, you said it, was a perfect example. When we started the company and we was trying to build the events business, the HR, our HR events and conferences, I came to Shane with this idea of launching a podcast. That was not in the plan to the point, right? But it was almost one little side project. And I was like, hey, in order for us to succeed, I want to make sure that we can shine the spotlight on the profession in a unique way, which will help our audience. Oh, okay. Shane was like skeptical. Hey, we don't want to, we just started. Do we really need to spend that much money on a microphone? That literally was the conversation in my bedroom. The first ever purchase was this microphone in our bank account, which is hilarious. And all of a sudden it's like, we're sitting in a TV studio and everyone knows us for the show. If he would have just shut that idea down and we never would have done it, we wouldn't be here today.
There we go.
So you always have to have those things happening. Like you said, not part of the plan.
Yes.
But you want to try it out as well. It's just knowing when to give up on something is also
yes. When hard. That's
just like, this isn't working, but we're still keeping. Like, how many companies have you worked for that they're like, this is just how we do it, even though it's the wrong thing. No, everyone knows it ain't working, but they're like, yeah, this is how we do it. This is the process. Yeah. This is how we do it.
That comes from a place of complacency and comfort. It feels comfortable. It is familiar, kind of in the vein of, if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah.
Right?
Even though everyone knows there's a better way to do it.
Yes. Yes.
And we've all been in companies and probably are in companies right now that's the norm, right? It's frustrating. You're like, I can't change it. It's too much effort.
It's too much effort.
To change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the funny one, I'm not a big fan of the phrase future of work. I haven't come up with a better one, so... But I'm not a big fan, and I'll tell you why. It's because it creates in people's minds a sense of distance, that it's somewhere in the far future.
And it always will be.
Yes. and it will always keep moving forward, yeah? So I'll never reach it.
I always say the future work is now. That's one of the things I always try to say, and I'm like, the future work is now. Like, if you said the things that we're doing and achieving with AI and hybrid work and the gig economy, all these things, that is the future work is now. It's happening. So if you have the vision, like you're saying, which everyone has, the perception of the future, you're kind of always missing. I love that. I agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't like the idea of the future of work. It's like, no, the future work is now. It's
work today and tomorrow. I don't know. Tomorrow. We've got to come up with something, Chris.
Yeah, suggestions we'll post this on LinkedIn. Suggestions in the comments below. Well, I don't know another version of what that. I'm sure there's something we're missing. I'm sure someone's going to put something really cool and that we're thought about. But you're all right. Like, the pandemic leap shotted us into the future. Like, you just, I think we've kind of halved the time, of what there's no going back now, basically.
And sometimes a crisis needs to happen, as in, let me put it a different way. No one wishes crisis on anybody, unless you're a psychopath, but...
catalyst for change, right?
But it can be. But it can be a catalyst for the wrong type of change, but it can be a catalyst. It's within our gift as humans. Whatever happens, what are we going to do about it? So again, for instance, I remember when the pandemic kicked in and within 3 weeks, as I said, we at Bank of America, we moved 180,000 people to work from home. There was a rhetoric at the very start, in simple terms, that we're all going to go back to the office as quickly as possible, because, and that was part of the argument, because an investment banker cannot do their job at home. That was just the stance. It's not a job that has ever been done historically from home. Therefore, it cannot be done effectively from home.
No one's ever even tried it.
Exactly. So a few months went by and we had our half-year earnings announcements. Numbers don't lie. The bank at the time had the best 6 months in 10 years.
Wow. So
that was a really interesting moment, because that put a bit of a mirror to the organization from a mindset and cultural perspective. Well, numbers tell you that the rhetoric beforehand wasn't necessarily true. So what are you going to do about it? And again, organizations then face a choice. Well, are we going to ignore that data and we want to nurture the legacy culture? It's okay if you want to make that decision, but like with every decision, there will be consequences of that, right? Or do we want to take a different stance and actually learn from this experience and look at, well, how can we perhaps operate as an organization differently and become maybe even better because of that difference in how we operate?
Yeah.
And that's the path that the company took at the time, and to their benefit, accelerate a few years later. And I mean, the company obviously continues to do great and so on, but it's always a choice.
But
it's always a choice.
To a point that probably never would have happened if the crash.
No.
Maybe at some point, maybe, many years.
It would have maybe happened on a minor scale. Someone somewhere in the organization will start a little, lab, right? Let's experiment with a group of 50 people.
Yeah.
What it will mean if they work from home 3 days a week, right? But this happened on a scale. This happened globally. You didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest experiment that no one ever predicted
the world experiment.
Or planned for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What are you looking forward to most in terms of the transformation journey that you're on now? So you're kind of at the beginning. What are you most excited about?
Unlocking the company, to be honest with you. What I mean by that is it's almost like I'm thinking of how we are injecting second life into the organization. Building on 117 years of incredible legacy, you don't stay in the market for over a century if you're doing everything wrong.
No,
right?
Clearly, innovation's in the DNA, because I'm sure the company's reinvented itself and created new products. You don't stay around that long if you're constantly not innovating.
No, but it's that next step in modernizing the organization. And how we get work done, for example, collectively together as one organization, not in silos. How we get stuff done, also from a leadership point of view, how our leaders lead the organization, and how that leadership not only may but has to differ from how you would have led an organization 20 or 30 years ago.
Give me an example of how you reimagine that.
Well, so for instance, from a organizational structure perspective, the organization will become a lot more matrixed, a lot fewer intact teams, a lot more project-based work.
Agile.
And essentially, from an org design perspective, we are moving the company towards exactly that philosophy of, here is a problem that we need to solve for. And now, who are the people that have the right skills, capability, experience, thought process, thought leadership that we bring around that problem, and we solve for that problem together.
Yeah, love that. That's
and a lot
big
of
cultural shift. That's a huge shift.
Because you're absolutely right. Because that's just from an org structure perspective. But again, then is the whole how piece. Well, how do leaders lead their teams in that structure? How do leaders move away from a command and control type management style? Here is your job, and this is every day what you need to do, and I will come and tell you what to do and how to do it, to here is a problem, you've got a certain skill set, go and figure it out. I will be here on the sidelines to remove barriers from your way as you go along, to tell you that you're doing a great job when you're doing a great job, to help you steer you in a different direction if perhaps I see that you're not going in the direction that we need to go to. I'm going to do it with grace, humility, and we're just going to try to have a good time along the way rather than burn ourselves like candles from both ends.
Yeah. That's also good. When you do that, everything changes, right? How leaders are rewarded, how they're compensated, like you're moving them from like talent importers to talent exporters. You mentioned a similar thing, like talent, talent hoarding ain't gonna work.
No.
This person doesn't just sit in your team and that's it, and they're labeled this. What we spoke about earlier about the reason I left my last company. I would love to have been in a company where I could work on different projects. That's also it's also going to increase the engagement and retention, I'm sure. Right? Well, actually, we're already seeing it in companies that are doing it already now, because people are excited to work on different projects. You also have like the cross pollination of innovation and ideas and collaboration, because how often do you even get to I know people that never even spoke to someone in their marketing team before, or their supply chain team, or all of a sudden you're bringing these minds together.
Yes, and when different minds come together, that's where magic can happen. But you need to help enable that in an organization, and not, for example, drive a culture. And I'm by no means saying that that's the culture right now. It's just an example, a stark example to paint the picture, I guess. But yeah, so
you've got to create a psychological safety first to be able to even do that and fail forward and try new things and be part of that. Because if you don't do that part, it doesn't.
So to that point, one of our key enablers for the transformation is experimentation, actually. And it's a red thread across everything that we do throughout the transformation. As an example, our leadership development programs that some of them I partner with London Business School they have the experimentation piece in their DNA. So our leaders, they're not talked at for 6 months by faculty from London Business School. We put them in activation learning groups, up to 5 people, and they actually work with their business leaders and facilitated by London Business School, and they actually identify areas in their businesses where there is a opportunity for either a business or a leadership experiment, and they run these experiments, and then we measure the outcomes of those experiments, and we know from these experiments that the impact on their leadership style is incredible. They tell us, and their teams tell us, how their mindset shifts from that command and control to really empowering your team, trusting your team, enabling your team. How they...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had him on the show.
Oh, well, there you go.
A long while ago, but I'm pretty sure I had him on the show.
Small world.
It's Small World. But I think it was about the book as well.
Yes.
It's been out for a while, the book.
Yes, it has been. And Professor Cable was one of our faculty.
Oh, really?
That we work with.
Yeah, that's so weird. I was like, her name, I've done so many episodes, so it's like, it was maybe like a year ago. I think the other thing as well, like, especially for an organization like yours, it then allows the organizations to be agile and have speed in the market, which is you have to be able to do that. And the traditional organizational structure just doesn't allow for that as well. So not only are you going to lose talent as well, but you're also not going to be competitive in the market.
No.
So you have to move to a model like, I'm seeing Unilever's just moved to the same model, similar thing, project based, bringing different parts of the business to work on core projects. And they have radical transparency within their system. I can't remember what they call it or what they use. Everyone in every part of the company can see what every other person's working on. And you can click into the project and you can see what stage they're at. They have like a traffic light system. So you can even see who's on the project, what it's about, what they're trying to achieve, and then like the traffic light system of where they are sort of on the journey, where the block is. But it's everyone, and everyone can see it. No matter what seniority level you have the transparency, and I thought that was so cool.
That's brilliant
to be able to that's a big shift.
It's a huge shift
to move to that. And they have I think it's like head of way of working job title now. It's probably not better than that, but they have a whole team whose only job is to basically focus on the ways that we now work at Unilever. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
It's a job we would have not seen, even 3-4 years ago.
No, it's a brand new one.
Yeah.
So I can't remember. Yeah, it's like head of way of working or something along those lines. Because I could talk to you forever. We have to wrap up at some point as well. Like, firstly, it's been cool really over the last couple of years to get to know you. Like you said it earlier, you are someone that whenever I speak to you just brings a a level of joy and energy and passion into when you walk through the door. And I mean that. I would say that about a lot of people. And even today, I've learned more that that's just a choice that you make. That's not just an accidental thing. You choose to live life and be happy, be grateful, and there's only one life we live. So that's something I've learned from you and taken away. But there's quite a lot of things I've taken away from the conversation, but that was definitely one of them. And I wish you all the best on the new journey, and I'm glad we finally did the podcast and in person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Chris, thanks so much. You know, I appreciate your time. I really appreciate what you do for the community. Really hats off to you, to Shane, to Lisa, to the whole team. What you kind of brought, you know, to this world.
Yeah.
Keep going, because you're doing amazing things. And yeah, you know, thanks for having me. And I'll see you around in the ether somewhere.
All right. All the best. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.